I'm just trying to get warm, man.
It's raining. You see that? Let me sit down.
Sir, you were causing a disturbance. Step away from the bus.
Disturbance? Because I'm broke? Because I'm black? You hear yourself?
Hands where I can see them. Take a breath. We can talk over here.
I ain't got nothing. Nowhere to go.
You just don't want me on that bus.
They said it was just another call. Just another night. But what happened at that bus stop will shock you. Under a flickering streetlight, a man stands in the rain with a torn grocery bag and exactly $1.75 in his pocket. Not enough for a full fare. Not enough to buy back his dignity. His name is Malcolm Reed, 43 years old, soaked to the bone, and moments away from a decision that will set the internet on fire. And wait until you hear why he was there. 3 years earlier, Malcolm was making $65,000 a year as a city bus mechanic. He knew every route, every engine, every bolt that kept the wheels turning. He had a modest apartment, a kid in school, and a coffee mug that said, "Make it home." But then came the layoffs, a rent hike, and one hospital bill that swallowed his savings in a single bite. His life didn't fall apart all at once. It fell apart like a timetable that slowly emptied. And what happens next? You won't believe how quickly it can happen to anyone. He tried everything, day labor, temp agencies, 2 interviews that went nowhere because he didn't have a stable address. He kept a notebook with phone numbers and start times and a list of tools he swore he'd buy again. Torque wrench, socket set, headlamp. On the last page, he wrote a promise to himself, "Tomorrow I'll fix it." And the reason he was at that stop tonight? A rumor about a warehouse job that started at sunrise and paid $18 an hour. $18 to start stitching his life back together. But first, he needed a ride. At 10:42 p.m., the driver radioed dispatch. Male subject refusing to leave the bus. On paper, it sounded routine. In reality, it was a match drifting toward gasoline. And wait until you hear who answered that call. Officer Daniel Myers, badge 4271, 8 years on the job, mortgage halfway paid. He believed in procedure, in checklists, in doing things the way the manual said, no backup requested, no weapons reported, just a tired cop thinking he'd be home by midnight. He pulled up beside the shelter, rain tapping the hood like a clock counting down. Bodycam light blinking red, and if you think this ends the way you expect, you're not ready for the turn. The door hissed shut, leaving Malcolm and Myers in the storm face to face under that buzzing light. The officer's voice came first. "Sir, step off the bus." But Malcolm had stepped off plenty, jobs, leases, chances, and now he was done stepping back. "I'm just trying to get home," he said, voice steady, eyes tired. The driver watched through the glass. The wind pushed rain sideways. 2 men, 2 stories, 1 impossible moment. And the reason this spiraled so fast is something no one talks about until it's too late. Myers had been trained to control the scene, to keep his voice firm and his hands visible. But there's a second, invisible training. Years of calls where the loudest person ends up on the ground and the quietest story never gets told. He took a step closer. Malcolm didn't move. The air between them felt charged, like the second before a storm breaks. "Sir, step over here," Myers said, gesturing to the curb. Malcolm shook his head once, rain streaking down his face. "I'll pay tomorrow. I've got a job in the morning, please." And wait until you hear what the camera caught next. The body cam saw a hand reach out, a shoulder flinch, the kind of micro motion only desperate people make when they feel cornered. It heard the breath catch in Malcolm's throat and the rain drumming harder, like an audience that already knows the ending. Voices rose. A phone came out. Another. Someone said, "I'm recording." And then Malcolm's voice, cutting through the static like a siren. "You don't see me. You see a problem." That sentence would set comment sections on fire by dawn. Myers, fighting the surge of adrenaline and the cold knot of fear that comes from being framed forever in a single video, reached for control the way he'd been taught. Commands, positioning, handcuffs. Malcolm pulled back on instinct. The world compressed to a few square feet of wet concrete and a red blinking dot. The officer radioed for backup, voice tight. Bystanders shouted over the storm, "He said he's trying to get home, and come on, man." The camera tilted. The sound of cuffs snapped like a verdict. And what happens next is the moment that made an entire city stop scrolling. For 2 seconds, the lens found Malcolm's face. It wasn't rage. It wasn't defiance. It was a look you've seen on someone paying with quarters and coming up short, a quiet, devastating disbelief. He whispered one sentence to himself, barely audible under the rain. "Tomorrow I fix it." You think you know what happened after that? Wait until you hear what they found in his jacket. The call ended. The report was filed. The video started traveling as if it had its own engine. 10,000 views in an hour. 100,000 by sunrise. Homeless man arrested for trying to ride the bus. The captions read, as if those RDs could hold all the weight of that night. Commenters chose sides like teams. Some saw a man who needed help. Others saw a man who wouldn't comply. Headlines fought for the loudest angle. But the detail that no one printed right away, the one that turns this from a story into a reckoning, was folded in Malcolm's pocket. It was a scrap of paper, smudged ink, rain-softened edges. On it, a tiny budget, numbers stacked like fragile hope. $1.75 bus, $4 coffee plus sandwich, $18 an hour, call Luis at 6:10 a.m., be early. Under that, one line, "Tomorrow I'll fix it all." And the reason that note matters is simple. It proves what the video can't: intent. He wasn't running from something, he was running to it. The department said the officer followed policy. Review pending. Lessons to be learned. But policies don't measure shame. They don't measure the exact weight of a man's last good chance. They don't calculate what happens when a $2 fare becomes a $2,000 legal problem, a $20,000 year lost, a $200,000 lifetime slid off the rails. If that math makes you uncomfortable, wait until you hear Myers' side. In the interview room, he gave the standard answers. Commands issued, subject non-compliant, minimal force. But when the recorder clicked off, something else cracked open. He told a colleague, "I wasn't scared of him. I was scared of being the next headline." It's the sentence that explains too many nights like this. Officers train for danger. They don't train for virality. They armor up for weapons. No one teaches them how to survive being filmed from the worst angle of their worst moment. And yet, here's the part that will surprise you. Myers couldn't leave it there. Days turned into weeks. He stopped sleeping. He replayed the footage in his head like a song he hated. The rain, the look, those words. "You don't see me. You see a problem." He drove past the terminal one night and saw the bench under that flickering light. Someone had taped a cardboard sign to the backrest, "Malcolm Stop." Beneath it, a single line in black marker, "For everyone still waiting for a way home." And that's when the truth hit him so hard he had to pull over. He'd stopped a man who was already stopped by life. And the reason that hurts is because it means the badge didn't create the tragedy. It only revealed it. He filed his resignation 3 months later. Burnout, he told the department. But the real reason was simple. He couldn't stand the sound of air brakes anymore. Every bus that hissed by sounded like a memory shutting its doors. Meanwhile, the city moved the way cities do. Loud, righteous, briefly united. Protests at the terminal, signs that said, "Let him ride." A fundraiser to cover bus passes for people with less than $2 in their pockets raised $27,480 in a week. A shelter partner negotiated with transit for compassion fares after 10 p.m. A small policy with a big ripple. And if you think that's where it ends, you're missing the twist that will change how you look at your own wallet. A local journalist dug into transit numbers and found this. The average unpaid fare on that route last year totaled $12,390. The cost of nightly police responses to fare disputes on that same route? Over $41,000 in overtime, equipment, and processing. You heard that right. The city spent over $40,000 to chase $12,390. And the reason that matters is because money doesn't lie. It tells you what a system truly values. If those numbers make your jaw tighten, wait until you hear what the bus company did next. They installed a small sign above the validator. 4 words that feel like an apology. Need help? Ask here. Behind it, a quiet fund seated with $10,000 from employee donations, $15,000 from a local nonprofit, and $5,000 from a coffee chain that decided to put its logo where its mouth is. Drivers got the green light to tap that fund for anyone they believed was on a legitimate mission: work, shelter, medical, reunification. The rule was simple. If it gets someone home, help them board. And the reason it worked is even simpler. People don't want a handout. They want a way through. What about Malcolm? Here's the part you were afraid to ask. The charge didn't stick. The city dropped it. But the night took its toll. He missed the warehouse shift. The number $18 per hour became another smudge on another page. He disappeared for a bit, as people do when the light gets too bright. Then slowly he reappeared. Not as a headline, as a person. An outreach worker found him near the Riverwalk wearing a donated jacket and that same notebook, now sealed in a plastic bag. On a new page, fresh ink. Call Luis again, be early, bring ID. And one line underlined twice, do not quit. A week later, he took a bus no one filmed. He sat in the back, stared out the window like people do when they're trying not to cry, and got off 2 stops early to walk the rest. He made it to the warehouse before sunrise. The shift boss looked him over and said, "You late?" Malcolm held up his hands. "No, sir, I'm early." The man nodded once. "Clock in." That first week, he cleared $612 before taxes. It wasn't $65,000 a year, not yet, but it was a start. And wait until you hear what he bought with his second paycheck. 2 things: a prepaid phone, $49.99, and a monthly transit pass, $62. Over and over, he ran his thumb across the back of that pass like a rosary. It was plastic, cheap, ordinary, but to him, it was a key. The kind that doesn't open doors so much as it keeps them from closing. He taped the old scrap of paper inside his new notebook and wrote, "Tomorrow, I'll keep fixing it." As for Myers, he took a job far from flashing lights, warehouse security on the night shift, ironically guarding the same loading bays where men like Malcolm start over. On his first week, he saw a worker come running for the punch clock, breathless and wet from the rain. The man patted his pockets for a pass that wasn't there. Myers held the door with his boot and said, "Go. Clock in." No lecture, no policy, just a small correction to a story he couldn't stop replaying. And the reason that detail matters is because redemption rarely arrives with trumpets. It shows up as a door held open in the rain. The city didn't transform overnight. It never does. But a few curves on the graph bent the right way. Fare disputes dropped 28% on the route where the fund launched. Calls for service at terminals dipped just enough to notice. Shelter vouchers got simpler. A bus driver kept a stack of plastic ponchos by the seat and told riders, "Take one. Bring it back if you remember." Some did. Most didn't. It didn't matter. What mattered was the temperature of the night got 1 degree warmer. Here's the question you have to ask yourself the next time you pass a bus stop. What is the price of a ride compared to the cost of a life paused? We'll argue about policy, and we should. We'll argue about procedure, and we must. But the math of mercy is embarrassingly clear. A $2 ride can save a $200 crisis. A $20 pass can prevent a $2,000 mistake. A $200 program can spare a $20,000 year in damage control. If you think that's soft, look at the receipts. They don't care about your politics. They care about the bottom line. So here's the final hook, the one you won't forget. They said it was just another call, just another night. But the truth is, every city is one bus stop away from deciding what it believes about people. One officer deciding whether to enforce or to listen. One rider deciding whether to harden or to hope. And one stranger, maybe you, deciding whether to look away or to ask, "Do you need help getting home?" This isn't just a story, it's a mirror. And the reason the reflection hurts is because it shows us something we already knew. Dignity is not a luxury item. It's a fare every one of us deserves to pay. And sometimes to have covered until we can pay it ourselves. The truth doesn't always make headlines, but it deserves to be heard. Share this video and hit subscribe. More real stories are coming.